And thank you for being here. Maybe you're wondering why you're here. Sometimes I go to these meetings, we're in the beginning with a fledgling state right here. We are trying to figure out, much as many of you, how to bring some resources to our community, particularly to the Danbury schools, my primary interest. More importantly, with all of us, we're focusing on the youngsters in this town. So we have a common interest for what we're doing. We sorely need resources for us. And one of the ways for us to reach out to get those is through grants. A little history with Danbury. At one time they did have some kind of a grant writer, but it didn't work out. We didn't fit the typical profile. We're not looked at as a needy district. Things are changing. We just received our free and reduced lunch count. We're close to half the student body on free and reduced lunch. That's quite a bit. Now, I'm sure part of that is the economy and what's happening. I hope to God people get back to work. Our normal number is around 24 to 28%. At least the last 5 years I've been here. It's grown exponentially. With that profile, we begin fitting into organizations and foundations that begin looking at us in terms of need. Just this weekend alone, I must have written back 5, 6 parents wanting to know why they're on textbooks, why they're on materials. And the board told everyone last year, if we're going to keep faculty, we're going to have to do without. And do without sounds good until I do without my kids' stuff. Now it becomes personal. And that's what's happening to us. And, so we tapped Ann on her back as, in her role as the assistant director at the Family Literacy Center. Her job is to bring resources into the community to fund that and also to find other funds. We're currently working on the Nellie Mae Foundation, which is potentially 8 to 12 years, between $8 and $12 million, depending on how many school districts are approved. But we're going through that process. We also have entitlements that are being reduced. We're constantly being told by the state, we begin programs and they have 20% less than 30%, things that you've gone through. So we can't depend on the state. That's a headline, right? So if you can't depend on the state, we have to go out and reach out to other groups. And that's why you're here. As groups look at our needs, they want to know who we're working with, who's signing on the grant, how can they maximize their money into the Danbury community. So, what better way to do it than to bring all of stakeholders together, and that's why we're here. Today we have a program. Mr. Gentleman's going to talk about the Adopt a School. We want to give a little background about what we're doing, our learning tree. Bill Glass will do that. But first, why don't we just go around quick and introduce everyone. We'll start to my right.
Ann Mead, Administrator for Early Childhood and Extended Learning Programs.
I'm Kathy Molinaro with the Danbury Board of Ed.
Joyce Emmett, Director of Special Services here in Danbury.
Bill Soldati with the Community Action Committee of Danbury, Financial Literacy Coordinator.
Diane Yeaman, Chairman of the Board of the Chamber of Commerce.
Elizabeth Gearing, United Way of Western Connecticut.
Linda Raymond, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Western Connecticut State University.
Lucy Harriman, I'm a District Manager for Wachovia Bank.
Maureen Kenny, I'm a Branch Manager for Wachovia Bank.
Good morning, I'm Jane Diggs, and I work with the University of Phoenix.
Mary Arcanti Gregory, Director of Danbury Schools and Business Collaborative.
Good morning, everybody. John Brown, Danbury Police. I'm in charge of the Community Services Division.
Good morning, I'm Lori Hornbecker, Director at Naugatuck Valley Community College, Danbury Center.
Good morning, Linda Costo, Executive Director at Danbury Children First.
Jeff Harrell, Danbury Fire Department.
Harry Ross Valley, Danbury Public Schools, Math and Science.
Phil Weiss, Senior Attorney with Boehringer Ingelheim Pharmaceuticals.
Good morning, Julie Dyson from Scholastic.
Barbara Stouter, I'm Director of Human Resources Shared Services at Praxton.
Nellie Jensen, Rob Fine with Applied Arts, Danbury Public Schools, and Schenectady Arts.
Neil McNamara, Director at Howell Woodland School and Community Programs at State Fair Activities.
Bill Glass, Director. I'll talk to you later. Deputy Superintendent, who's temporarily.
Good morning, Elio Longo, Director of Finance at Danbury Public.
Richard Giannotti, Vice Chair of the Board of Education. I would like to say on behalf Irving Fox, who is chair of the Board of Education. He just wanted to say thank you for all of you being here. Unfortunately, he was anticipated being here but got called away in business. But I do want to thank all of you for being here. It's very important to us.
So before we get to reviewing the minutes, which are functional, we're going to have Bill go through some of the stuff. Bill, maybe we'll give away a background of the learning tree, and then we'll go over the rest of it.
Sure, I'm happy to. Good morning again. The symbolic representation of the Danbury, by the way, it's good to see you, one of my favorite people in the room this morning. The symbolic representation of the Danbury Public Schools is the learning tree. It was crafted in 2001. You may see some of the graphics in the hallway. You'll see them all over our vehicles, all of our website material. The leaves of the learning tree represent the content we want our kids to know: English, math, science, social studies, etc. The trunk of the learning tree represents the lifelong learning skills for our students and for our staff. The ability to use skills such as technological skills, thinking skills, critical creative skill, and problem solving, literacy skills, etc. And the roots of the learning tree are probably the most important, and those represent the attitudes and attributes of character and what makes a good person a good person. We believe that it takes a village, and that's a good metaphor for the meeting this morning, and it ties into the roots of the learning tree, helping our kids to grow up strong and healthy. I don't know if you'll see this, if it's been passed out already, but our work in Danbury, if you don't have this, do you have this in front of you? No. That's okay. If you notice, the arrows are all pointing upward in every area. These are our test scores. The four-year trend on the Connecticut Mastery Test in reading, writing, and math. And for economically disadvantaged kids, black kids, white kids, Hispanic kids, English language learners, and social education. And those are the federal designations according to No Child Left Behind. Our test scores are up in every single area tested. That's a good sign. If you're with the bank, I'm sure that's the way you like to see your trend lines work. This tells us, provides some data that suggests that the Learning Tree initiatives are working. A little bit later on, we'll be talking about the Adopt a School program. Mr. Janelli asked me if I would kind of segue into that later. I'd be happy to. We've had some really great success over the years in different communities functioning in a little bit different way than is the norm. And we'd like to continue to have that upward trend moving forward with our kids. When I say our kids, I mean our kids collectively. So again, we appreciate you all being here this morning.
You know, let me put my little game thing here. Just got it, so I'm trying to figure it out. Any questions of Bill? One of the things that we're beginning to do, and we're beginning to go through our theory of action in terms of, you know, most places have a mission and things of that nature. We're trying to grapple with what are we about, how do we go about our business of succeeding in what we're doing each and every day, which drives our mission and our purpose. And we've reorganized the last 2 years to the point where we have a central committee that's really focusing on teaching and learning. And we're very mindful of trying to get a tipping point in our direction. We are moving forward, but every school, there are challenges. Some schools have dipped. They're on class state list for non-improving or not achieving AYP, which is the federal Leave No Child Left Behind, which is still in existence. So even though we're moving this way, we also are mindful that there are some schools that are just not succeeding at the rate that we should be. You'll read a little bit about some schools that are not succeeding, but yet if you look at cluster groups within our school, we have about a 39% mobility, both between elementaries and up to the secondary. So given that, you could see what could happen to programs with the inconsistency of the other students that come in and out. But yet, if you take a cluster of students in Danbury and look at them over time, we're succeeding. The trouble is, we're maybe getting 8 or 9 months success rate or achievement in 1 year, and we need to get more than a year out of it. So with that, you need time. These kids are bright, they're capable, they're able, they need resources, teachers are trained well, they can do what they need to do, but they can't do them sometimes from 8 to 3. So we're looking for extending programs, trying to, as we say, make those synapses kind of come in contact with each other. Maybe on Saturdays, we have some Saturday programs, we have some afternoon programs. But that all, as you can appreciate, is expensive. And so that's sort of our challenge to kind of get our tipping point in that direction and get our theory of action working to the point where, you know, we're on all cylinders moving ahead with all students. And the person trying to feed that cylinder here is Elio. I'm going to have him speak a little bit about our financial background. Not too much because it's depressing. So to speak. You know, every meeting I look at, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. But why don't you give us the trend for the last 5 years, less 3 or 5 years?
Sure, certainly. Good morning once again. The school districts operates with a general fund appropriation this year of just shy of $114 million. So the $114 million serves the educational needs of approximately 10,000 plus students. 3 years ago, we were operating closer to about $109 million mark. For fiscal year 2009-2010, we had an operating rate of 0%. Call it an increase or not an increase. We were flat funded for a year. And for the current fiscal year, our projected opening balance to operate and to carry forward all existing programs would have called for approximately $118 million budget. Given the state of both the local and state economy, it was a challenge, quite a challenge, to request an appropriation of approximately an additional $6 to $7 million. With the assistance of the Common Council, we were awarded a $114 million budget, approximately 1.8% increase. So cumulatively, over the past 3 years, we've lost somewhere between 50 to 60 positions. Not a single discipline or area was left untouched. We had reductions in our teaching staff. Cumulative over the past 3 years, we've lost about 5% of our teaching staff. Administrators, we cut approximately 11% of our administrators. Nurses, about another 4%. Custodians, 4%. Secretaries ranged about 3.5%. So again, the cumulative effect was somewhere in the mid-50 range. We coupled the general fund with the federal stimulus dollars. Perhaps you're aware of the era stabilization funds. Last fiscal year, the state of Connecticut had a projected deficit, or projected its deficit to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And all communities, school districts, receive what is known as an educational cost share. It's a very complex formula with a very basic outcome, where the wealthier communities receive the smallest appropriation in terms of returns of education dollars to the community, and the more impoverished communities will receive the lion's share of the dollars. Here locally, Danbury's reimbursement is approximately 18 to 19 cents on the dollar. Now, last year, there was a reduction across the state of about 14%. The state of Connecticut applied the federal state fiscal stabilization funds to plug the gap up at the state level. So at the end of the day, both the local boards of education and municipalities were made whole. However, for the current fiscal year, what is known as an MBR, which is a minimum budget requirement. The minimum budget requirement speaks to the local legislative bodies, in our case, the City Council, with a minimum level of funding for education. Now, we had this one-time appropriation from the state, which was the era stabilization funds. The state legislature for the current year has reduced the MBR across the state. And that puts not only Danbury in jeopardy, but as well as all other towns and municipalities throughout the state of Connecticut. As we prepare for next fiscal year, we begin with a shortfall of approximately $3 million. So we've cut approximately $10 million over the past 3 years, lost approximately 50 plus positions across the board. What have we achieved? Well, we've achieved significant cost reductions through competitive bidding. We need to make the most of what we can with our appropriation. Transportation, we bid out for 5 years. We saved approximately $2.5 million. Copiers and the like, competitive building, where in collaboration with our local school districts, we bid with the state of Connecticut as well to try to contain our costs. One of our largest costs, given that approximately 80 cents on the dollar of our expenses are tied to salary and benefits, one of the larger costs is that of healthcare, Medicare. We've all been impacted by the rising costs of healthcare. We were trending at approximately 16 to 17% renewal rates per year. Now in mathematics, we have a standards called the rule of 72. All factors of the product 72, it's a doubling effect. So if you have it trending at about 16% per year, thereabouts, in a little over 4 years' time, will cost the districts $20 million, will cost $40 million in 4 years' time. And if you continue along that trend of 16 to 17%, in 8 years' time, what was costing you $40 million in year 4 will double to cost you $80 million. And we we operate with a $113 million balance on it. So we were successful this year in further containing our costs with heightened negotiations with our labor groups. And I applaud them for their efforts as well, where they came back to the table, concessions were made by most, if not all, of the bargaining labor groups. So what we're faced with today are the challenges that our continued growth ramps up at approximately 6 to 7% per year. Our appropriation 2 years ago was flat funded. The current year was a 1.8% increase. We have health care, which we've contained at a value of about 8-9%. Whether that will hold for the foreseeable future remains to be seen. So we make use of wherever we can, through Ann's efforts and other staff's efforts, the increased awards in terms of competitive grants. The entitlement grants will continue to come our way. They're formula driven. It's the competitive grants that we need assistance with. And it's with the assistance of a group such as this group here this morning that we can continue to provide the services that are needed and are deserved by our young children. Thank you.
The other thing that you may be wondering is reducing that many faculty and staff. Why haven't things gone worse than they have? Because that's what I keep hearing. We don't really feel it. Out of that group, we didn't hire any of them. Right? I think there's a misnomer. So, and having a board like this kind of communicate with the directors and leaders. The people that we've reduced, we haven't hired back. We've reduced. And the only place you can reduce, the shadow folks, the folks in the background that are doing the work. We were cited for not having a proper curriculum because of the resources and the lack of individuals we had to produce it. So we've had to reduce that, and I said a few minutes ago we had to reorganize. Well, we did reorganize that. We've had to redo the way we're doing things. That we can manipulate. What we can't manipulate is the teacher in front of the classroom. And what we're seeing, our goal of having 22, 23 students at the elementary, the beauty of Danbury is we have large middle and high schools. But we had nice, small, little satellite elementary schools that are growing to the point where they're becoming very crowded. We closed one last year. Our class sizes are moving up. The issue of time with kids, the research isn't that great. If it's under 12, they say it really affects student achievement. But if you're in a classroom nowadays with 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and the kids that are in there are, they're there in a school system that weren't here 10, 15 years ago. They require time. These are, they have their own little gifts, but the teachers have to spend time with these youngsters. So our inability to put the kind of time in with those youngsters is affected because of our class size. So when I hear that, you've reduced all of these, but we don't hear anything, well, that's why. As we move ahead, it's going to be hard to impact test scores, positive if we continue to grow the way we're growing. By bringing in resources to us, the entitlement money that you hear about generally doesn't go to other than Title I where we can get some faculty, but it creates a dual system. Title I in our school system, the premise of it is you have low economically needed students. You have a number of those. And if you're below that, then you get resources. And the resources you get have to be spent over and above all of the other schools. So 12 elementary schools, 6 of them are on that list. Everybody gets the same except these 6, they get more. That stands as a so we do that. But those other schools can't get the same kind of resources. We need to find ways to bring something so we can level the playing field. Try to do that as best we can. And organizations that we go to for entitlements generally don't pay for staff. So we're trying to find the kinds of grants that will actually put people in the classroom, extend time after school, and it's going to be people-driven. Resource-wise, there are grants for that, but not much for personnel. that's part of our challenge.
Yes, I just wanted to perhaps just let you know that generally, when we prepare a budget, it's the preparation of the superintendent's budget that, in collaboration with the board, we recommend to the city, and the city council then would vote on an appropriation to us. As Mr. Longo has indicated, in the last couple of years, we had to have cut $10 million from what we had proposed. That $10 million is a significant number. It's chiseling away at the infrastructure of what was built up in the past. When I first joined the board 4 or 5 years ago, the economy was different. We were getting nice increases, and we were able to be a leader in terms of some of the things we did in education. I truly believe that we are a successful district. We have one of the best teacher staffs, I think, in the state, if not the country. We constantly ask these teachers to do more with less. They're a great group of people, and if it wasn't for them, we would be able to achieve certain things. Don't get dismayed relative to the fact that we cut so much and think that the quality of education is going down, which I'd like Dr. Glass to take the success we've had in spite of these particular reductions.
Thanks, Richard. There's a dichotomy going on in Danbury. It's kind of a strange effect. On one hand, and it's almost like statistics, you can make them say what you want them to say. I'm not suggesting Mr. Longo does that with our financial records.
Not unless the rule 72.
In the aggregate, our scores have been going up. We have the achievement gap, and it's through the various groups that I mentioned before, and it's pretty much pervasive throughout Connecticut and throughout the country. So as our scores go up, the gap has not closed to the extent to which we'd like it to close. The school systems in Connecticut are broken out into something called district reference groups. Is it fair to say that a Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven should be competing with the Greenwich, New Canaan, and Darien? Should they be in the same groups? The argument that the State Board of Education made in the legislature was no. We should break them out into kind of groups that are similar. So Danbury fits into the category DRG, District Reference Group H. There's Danbury, there's Norwalk, there's Stamford. It's groups similar to the small cities like us. Within that strata, there is a listing of maybe 14 school systems that fall within each of those categories, maybe 15, 18. We are at the top of our reference group. And in fact, we've gone through the ceiling and we're now in the next reference group higher, which is wonderful news for us. It's terrible news for the next reference group higher, because the reference group below them is now starting to outscore some of those school systems. So on one hand, it looks great. And as I mentioned before, every single area tested has gone up over the past 4 years. And we look at 4 years trend line because that's the length of that test. The downside is that the gaps, and you heard Sal talk before, if we have 10 months of instruction, it's reasonable for a parent to say, I'm going to drop my child off in September, pick my child up in June. 10 months later, I want 10 months worth of growth for 10 months worth of instruction. We have to get 12 to 15 months of growth out of youngsters. It sounds terrible. It sounds kind of like little widgets. But in order to close the gap with many children, we have to accelerate their learning while we continue to take other kids who are making good progress and continue. So eventually, over time, if our gap looks like this is what we're looking to do. And that's the piece that kind of puts into context why we're doing so well in terms of student achievement, but at the same time, why we have such a critical need, because we have not as yet closed that gap to the extent that we need to. We have started to close it, and we're accelerating kids faster than many other school systems in Connecticut, but we haven't closed it enough.
So, you really become a consumer of what we do. With that in mind, what we did last year, we had a grant from the Graustein Foundation for community participation. It's a community roundtable. And we brought in first-year parents and teachers, and actually some students, did some focus groups. And then last year, we decided to bring in the business community. And we did do that. And Ian here will report on what we discovered working with them.
Richard, do you want to start off first with the awareness committee from the board?
We had a number of years ago, the board taken on part of our goals is to have more of a community outreach. I'm a firm believer, and many people on the board are firm believers of the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Who mentioned that, but it's certainly a basic premise and a good philosophical belief. What we tried to do was to get community involvement. And what is the community? The community is made up of parents, it's made up of students, it's made up of the religious leaders, it's made up of business people, in addition to educators. The role of educating your child is not necessarily the sole responsibility of the teachers of the school district. It's all of these factors and all these parties coming together. So also a number of years ago, Dr. Glass had informed me of a positive experience he had when he was in Bridgeport of a situation that they were looking to do an outreach. And there was a gentleman, the name is Bill referred to him as Jack. He didn't know who he was later, but offered a phenomenal amount of facilities and corporate headquarters for his district to hold a seminar for a week and a half later. Dr. Glass learned it was Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. So with that, I said, gee, if Bridgeport could do it, and these were different times, then in the economic times today, sometimes bad times are good because it gives you a way to rethink and think outside the box. So we said, let's get the community more involved. And essentially, one of the things we wanted to do was to reach out and say, are we doing our job? I mean, what is it out there that we need to do? Do the students feel as if they're getting an education that's going to help them succeed in the next level of their life? And also, if not, then what are some of the things that we could do in order to make that happen? We firmly believe in that model. It's all about kids. It's 100%, 110%. It's all about kids. And with that, one of the first initiatives that we did was to reach out and have different forums so that we can sort of get an independent, diverse group to feed back to us, give us a feedback, those two basic questions. And Ann has put together a summary that you can go through.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. There's an 8-page handout, 4 pages front and back, that I'm just going to go through very, very briefly to show you where we started off with our community input and where we are now. We were fortunate in 2009 to receive a grant from the Graustein Memorial Fund for a community conversation. And that community conversation we titled, Is Parent Involvement Important for Children's Growth and Development? We had about 100 parents attended early Saturday morning community conversation, and out of there came action steps that helped to inform the district enhancement plan that then went to the State Department of Ed for its approval. Then in 2010, we also received more funding for community conversations, and this one, some of you might remember, last January, we brought you together and we talked about, or we presented the question, are Danbury's graduates ready for college and the workforce? And we were able to gather wonderful insights and information that now has helped us to really look at our redesign of our high school. I'm not going to go through this page by page, but certainly on page 1 you'll see the outcomes of what that business roundtable was and the feelings. We were also able to, with that funding, do a roundtable or forum with parents, teachers, and students. And there was all that common theme through all of those forums of need for resources, need for internships, mentorships, more mentoring. We do have mentoring already, and Mary's going to address that in just a couple of minutes. But the students felt not connected to the community as closely as they would like to. So as we started to think about the board subcommittee and the fiscal advisory committee, which some of you were at in May, we thought, how can we bring these two groups together? Not so much to look for revenue or money at this point, but to look for the expertise that you have and how you can work with the school systems or work with the school system. I just want to point out one of our highlights that we have going on right now is our Nellie May. And that is on page 4. The Danbury district was approached by the Nellie Mae Foundation in late spring to look at a redesign of our high school at a district level. And what Nellie Mae looks for is a multi-year commitment from the district to change their high school into smaller learning communities. We've already started that this year with our freshman academy. We plan on incremental changes throughout the next few years at the high school level. When Nellie Mae put out the original RFP, we knew it was going to be tough competition. It's just for the New England states. They're looking to have a model community in every state, and we are the only ones left in Connecticut right now, and we have made it to phase 3. We had our site visit 2 weeks ago that the people from Nellie Mae came down. Some of you were involved in that as well. And we really feel pretty confident that we're going to be moving into phase 4, which is the planning grant to help make the changes at the high school. So those are some of the things, the community conversations, the business roundtables, the input of parents, the input of students and faculty, that has really helped us to decide which direction to take. The Public Relations Committee and the Fiscal Advisory and the powers that be here in the school system, we looked at what other potential things could we do to bring in resources into the community, and that's why you're here today. What we would like to do, and we've done a fair amount of work on it already, is to roll out our Adopt a School program. If you'll look on page 5, it just has general guidelines of things that we're looking for. We're looking for very basic things around job shadowing, academic enrichment, career awareness activities, student incentives and motivation, cultural enrichment, sponsorships of different things. But when I talk about cultural enrichment too, we're talking about maybe your company has somebody that does your whole cultural awareness part, that would like to share those skills with the high school students or with a group of middle school students. Okay. We go on to looking at improving school environment. You'll see on the actual list that the principals came up with, yes, we do need a little assistance in some landscaping and making our schools a little bit more welcoming than they are right now. Faculty support and recognition, and then student support and recognition, community involvement, fundraising activities and events, and joint community projects. Okay? I would like to share one success, or I'm going to ask a couple people to talk about some of the successes that we've had already, but I just want to share with you something that has been very, very successful. Today is the start of week 3. The after-school programs have normally been just in the school site. Mary Johnson is our principal at Stadley Rough School, and she realized that the students coming from the Wood Side Avenue Eden Gardens project who are not staying in her school for after school just because of the logistics, the getting home, parents couldn't pick up, there's no bus route that runs up there at 5 o'clock at night. And so what Mary and I brainstormed, we brought in Bobby and Mary Gardner from the Victory Church, and we brainstormed in recruiting volunteer teachers that would go to the Victory Royal Church, which is right next to the Eden Gardens complex, and provide homework assistance an hour each day after school, Monday through Thursday. She recruited about 21 teachers that said that they would be more than willing to give their time. We were able to give her 1 paid staff. We worked with Sodexo because the students are free and reduced lunch, so they get a snack in the afternoon. And Lieutenant Brown is now going to give us some police officers to come down to the site. Unfortunately, in most of these cases, when the students or the children see police officers, they're there because there's been a call to Eden Gardens. And we realize that these children deserve more, and that having police officers being there as well in the afternoon, that's the positive role model piece. So that is one of our initiatives among many right now that brings in that community perspective. How can we help these children that have the lower scores achieve better? How can we help their self-esteem and things like that? So, Mary, would you like to just talk just a second or two about the mentoring program that you run?
Sure. Mary, maybe you will come on up here.
Yeah, come on up here, see.
Because it's on cable.
Yeah.
And you might...
Oh.
Here.
could have it every day, Mary.
Good morning, everybody. I think most of you are aware of DSABC, Danbury Schools and Business Collaborative. We have been in existence for 20 years. This is our 20th anniversary. And when DSABC first started 20 years ago, the organization did a lot of the things that we're talking about today. Job shadowing, internships, career days, working with the area corporations and businesses to help support the school district. And a small piece of that back 20 years ago was our mentoring program, where folks from our area corporations and businesses would provide one-on-one mentoring to at-risk students in the Danbury Public Schools. 20 years ago, that program was very small. I think we started with about 20 mentors. But that really took off, and that is what we do now. We have close to 300 mentors mentoring in the Danbury Public Schools, grades K through 12. Some of our businesses around here around the table are very involved. We just signed on Wachovia. We have 6 new mentors ready for training on Wednesday, and Praxair doubled their mentor numbers this year. We went from 12 to over 20-something mentors from there this year. So we're seeing a real resurgence and interest in our school-based mentoring program. In addition to our mentoring program, we do offer scholarships to the students who graduate high school with their mentor and have had their mentor for 4 years or more. And I'd like to share this little tidbit, because it sounds like the one-on-one mentoring is very simple, straightforward kind of program, but it's very, very powerful. That 1 hour a week of undivided attention, a positive adult role model to be there for the student. Every year we present our scholarship at a big event in May, and for fun I'd like to average just the number of years that our mentor and mentees have been together in their graduating group. Usually averages around 7 years, but this past year we presented 6 scholarships. And when I did the averaging of the number of years, it averaged to 10.5 years. Most of those mentors had been with their students for 10 years. I had one who started with her youngster in kindergarten and saw her all the way through graduation. So although we ask for a 1-year school year commitment, I'd like to share that tidbit because I think it really underscores the power of, of the mentor and the difference that one positive adult role model can make in the life of a child. And I just do want to announce that Barbara's student recently graduated, and I checked my mailbox today, and she claimed her scholarship.
That's the best news.
That's the best news you have today. So, that's how we work, with the area corporations and businesses. However, about a third of our mentor roster at this time is from the community at large, too. So we welcome mentors from everywhere. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, thanks, Richard. As a matter of fact, this Thursday evening, we do have a fundraising event to support our scholarship fund. It will be at Western Connecticut State University. Everyone's welcome to join us. A lot of people around the table will be there. Thank you.
Julie is from Scholastic, and we have been working on several initiatives with Scholastic. I'd like to publicly thank Scholastic again for their donation to our Family Literacy Center here in Danbury. But if you'd like to talk about the REAL program, Julie, that would be wonderful.
Sure. We have a program that's called REAL. It is a mentoring program. It was designed to get community volunteers into a school, into a classroom for 1 hour a month, so roughly 7 times a year. The volunteer would come in and they have books to share with the students. They will be reading to the students and sharing experiences as they go through the readings. There's just a little flip card that gives them complete instructions, so it's all ready to go. They just review that card before they stop in. But the students then get a copy of the book to take home to start their home library. And when Dr. Sal talked about extending the learning day, these children in the class will end up with 7 books a year to take home to start a family library. And they're encouraged to reread the books at home, share them with their siblings, with their families. One of the concepts with this is instead of having literacy grow with just that student, it will grow in the entire family. Let's see, this one in the front. It's had a huge impact so far where it's been used across the country. Just from testimonials, one testimonial that stood out in my mind, a school principal said she started the real program in grade 3, and all of a sudden the other students were complaining, how come they didn't have someone coming in to read to them during school? How come they don't have any books to take home? This kind of thing. She said, you will get your turn, your chance will come. And also the program has arms and legs. The families read the books that are brought into the home. Some families have no books in their home at all, so this at least starts them with a family library. And Ann and I had talked about bringing this program maybe through WestCon, using the students there. And the volunteer commitment really is very small. It's basically 7 hours a year and maybe a little more time to prepare for the book that you're sharing.
So you'll be hearing more about that as we roll out over the next couple of months.
And what age does it start, at kindergarten?
Kindergarten through grade 7. And we have specific books selected for each grade that will be high interest. A lot of them are award-winning, really wonderful, good sharing stories.
And just to add on, I was just telling Linda that it becomes a nice continuation, especially if we can figure out where the kids are. You know, we've been rolling out Imagination Library in the community, but it stops at age 5. And so if this picks up at kindergarten, then the kids that aren't enrolled will get their books through this program too, but the kids that are enrolled will be able to continue getting those books in the homes that they've got to school, which is a good thing.
And just to
They
jump,
can marry those.
and to jump in, we would be very interested to talk more about that and what's going on.
That might also be a good place for Escape to the Arts, where they have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders they actually have homework time. The kids are expected to read, and the books there aren't a lot of them.
The other part that Scholastic, or a new piece that Scholastic is just rolling out is Read and Rise. And they're going to be working with Linda Costco in rolling that out at the Danbury Library. Linda, do you want to just talk about that?
Sure. Read and Rise is a newer curriculum developed by Scholastic. We have an operating Les Ras, which was a curriculum designed, it's Read and You Will Be Anything, for Latino families. And I think many of us were also looking for a multicultural curriculum. So it has been developed and piloted, I think, in Texas and California. And we're going to be piloting it here in Danbury, actually by the end of this month. We're going to be starting Tuesday night, October 26th, at the public library for 6 weeks. And it's an early literacy program. It's for parents of children that have infants through age 5. But many of the parents that take the program also have elementary school children as well. And they basically learn skills to support early learning at home. And we do target those families who, as Bill referred to, are suffering as part of that achievement gap. And it runs for 6 weeks. We also do follow-up afterwards because we've been running these early literacy programs for about 4 years now. And through focus groups and evaluations, there's been a lot of positive results. One example is actually a grandmother who came and said now she had to buy a bigger purse because everywhere she goes with her granddaughter now, she makes sure she has books, so she has every opportunity to share a book with her granddaughter. So again, and we partner with the schools on this also. We've done some of these programs with the Family Literacy Center. And Scholastic's been a great partner on that program, so we're looking forward to it.
It's a great teachable moment. If you get to this last page, just take a look at that.
This is Adopt a School Needs on the top.
Mary, did you have one of these? What does that last thing on there say? The last need. What does the last need say?
Caravan outreach vehicle?
Right, caravan for outreach vehicles. What our thinking is, it says, thank you, Mary. What we're looking for example, you heard us going out to, Mary Johnson going out into community health institutes. What we were thinking about was creating this van and having it staffed with books and materials, and we can create workshops for parents out of the Family Literacy Center to go out into the community on weekends, the baseball diamonds, the soccer fields, and work with parents and work with kids on working with each other in literacy skills and building it up. We thought we had a van, there was such a thing, but it all turned out, well, we never did get it. But we really think that'll make the difference in reaching out and extending the school day to Saturdays and in the evening, particularly during the summer, when there's a lot of downtime. So that's why it's on here. If someone has knowledge of, I know you actually run a van, Scholastic does, in parts of the country. We couldn't possibly get something like that, but if we had a large van that we can have our students at the high school transform into this mobile library workshop, that would be a great thing. I could see Beringer right on. I can just visualize that. Sponsored by and staffed by Westcon. But that's the kind of thing that we need, that we can reach out and, we've had to change our thinking about publicity, quite frankly. We're even looking at a website, we're trying to figure out ways to bring some resources here and not create a conflict with our mission on purpose. It has to be in concert with what we do. But we really need to figure out how to make it public for those that are donating to the schools, and yet really maximize some working with our kids and our families. And that's one primary way of anybody that's interested in doing it that we help out.
Great, thank you, Dr. Scott. So, what I'd like to do at this point is have Linda just talk a little bit about the different collaborative programs that we have between the district and Western Connecticut State University.
Thanks, Ann. But I've been hearing Western repeated several times, and we're certainly very open to thinking out loud with you about some of these great ideas that would indeed make a difference in the lives of our students here in Danbury. That said, the Bridges program is a very strong collaborative that has existed for the past 5 years between Danbury High School and Western Connecticut State University. And the overall goal is to help students coming from Danbury to Western and for example, other colleges to reduce their remedial work. And so we started with the teachers here at Danbury and our university professors to work on particularly math and writing. But then we built science into that particular profile, and the results have been dramatic. The students leaving Danbury going on to college have significantly reduced their need for remedial coursework and have demonstrated success in the colleges. And because of that fact, we decided to move the whole program into middle school and have a STEM focus. And we, again, focused on math, writing, and science. And we've been bringing the students from our university here to work with the students in middle school to do tutoring, particularly in math and algebra. And the results are dramatic because students do much better with other students as opposed to you and I in this situation. And so we've learned from it. We've been getting grants at the university in partnership with the high school, and we continue to look for further grants to develop the middle school concept even more. I've learned that Gates has some interesting resources that are available through grants if we can do some more online kinds of work with our students. And so we're looking at that very closely because we would very much like to partner with a Gates grant opportunity. So it's an ongoing gift that keeps giving, and I invite you to certainly learn more about how we make a difference in the lives of our students in math, writing, and science.
Thank you, Linda. One of the things that we were really successful with this summer, and Dr. Rasvali and I and many other members of the community and at Westcon worked on it, was a 2-week summer camp. This was a grant out of the Department of Commerce, weird place for it to come from. But it enabled us to pick 20 disadvantaged students at the middle school level. We put together a program that they visited a different field of STEM on a daily basis. They started off with going to the Greenway, first thing on a Monday morning, and doing water tests. The second day they did, Harry, you jump in, I can't remember exactly every day what they did, but they spent time, it was the Dora Pinot, who is a professor at Western, was able to recruit her staff. So one day they spent the day with Gary Lesser in the Weather Center, and then went down to WTNH TV and did the weather forecast on the TV with Dr. Mel. It also included a trip to Wallops Island in Virginia, so we got to take him down there overnight and tour the actual facility where all of the data radar comes in from all over the world. So they were able to see not, the shelf cloud that had moved through Danbury the day before, but the data of the shelf cloud that had moved through Danbury. The next day, we went out to Long Island Sound, to the Riverhead Foundation, and we tagged a turtle, which seems to be stuck in Long Island. If you go on the Riverhead Foundation website, you can actually track the turtle. And so we've been encouraging these students to do that. There was a heavy parent component. The parents were involved in 4 different parent activities and then went on a field trip for the last day.
To the Connecticut Science Center.
Yeah.
One of the other days we worked on astronomy, and the students went to both of the observatories on the main campus at WestCon and also at the West Side campus. Another day, Dr. Frank Dye led us on a field trip on the West Side campus, went down the trail, identified various flora and fauna, and I think that the kids really got a lot out of it and an appreciation of the many fields in science that they can interact with even as youngsters.
So this year, we're hoping to move this grant forward. The grant was for 3 years. This past year was 20 students. This year, we're hoping to make it for 60 students. So we're in the planning process for that for next summer already. So, all right. Is there anybody else that would like to share? I know many of you have other partnerships with us in the district, and we thank you for that. Every little partnership counts so much. The students and the parents really appreciate it, as well as the teachers, and looking at the support that we have, that you've been given the district. What I'd like to do now, if there's not any questions, is to move to what we see as some of the logistical parts of this Adopt a School program. What we would like is for companies, industries, individuals, whoever, that would like to become part of our Adopt a School program, on the very last page of that 4-page handout is an interest form. And if you'd like to leave that with us today, by no way is it a commitment to doing anything. Some of you may like to go back and speak to the people that you work with. We've also, as Dr. Sal showed you, given you a list of needs. We asked each principal to come up with 2 or 3 things that they really, really needed, and then we asked each department within the school district of their needs. So you have everything from smart boards down to people to teach Spanish in the elementary and middle school, classrooms, landscaping, reading buddies, some things that more are manpower related than actual money part. Furniture, artwork. I mean, some of the things seemed pretty bizarre when I was putting the list together, but it's certainly all things that we can use here in the district. So what we would like, once your company has committed to being an Adopt a School partner, is to assign a coordinator that will come to a monthly coordinators meeting. I think we may need those meetings monthly up front to get really a solid foundation for moving this program forward, and then probably go to quarterly meetings. And that coordinator would work with the school that they're assigned to, or the school that they've chosen to work with, and their people that are working at that school. We'd ask that an end of the year report be done on the activities, and we'll have sharing sessions throughout the year as well. We'd like to do a kickoff breakfast next, beginning in early August, once all the principals are back, to kick off next year's Adopt a School. This year is going to be our pilot phase, getting it up and getting it going, working out the kinks that we may encounter in it. One of the things that we did want to put on the table that the committee felt strongly about is to do a job shadowing on that February 2nd, which is a Wednesday, next year for students that have some companies that they could shadow. So, questions, thoughts? Yeah,
Not so much a question. I just wanted to, as listening to this, to bring to your attention, in the Danbury News Times, I think on October 3rd, there was an article about the Adopt a School program, and it leads off. It says, schools in Newark just received $100 million from the founder of Facebook. Danbury public schools are much more realistic, I like that word, and they seek community support to help address their needs. And I think our resources that we have in this community are worth a phenomenal amount of money. The purpose of the Adopt a School is basically consolidation, to use another word, like an umbrella. is to bring us all together so that we can get our message across, to become more unified and more organized. Is the case with the universities is partnering with us, the business community, the Chamber of Commerce. It's so important for us to relate and work with the Chamber of Commerce that they understand what the schools are doing so that they can inform the businesses and we can have more of an input from the business. Don't forget, our students are their future employees, so it's important from that part. The police department, the fire department, it's important because they can attribute and come to the schools and offer lectures and programs as to drug abuse and different things and safety issues. In terms of the industries, I wouldn't downplay financial contributions, but to start, we'd love to have resources. Shadowing, internships, having students take part in some of your daily business programs so they can see the reality of what they learn in school on a theoretical basis and how it affects a practical basis. To go ahead, the Palace Theater in Danbury, if they were here, they could perhaps offer their theater for different productions and concerts that we may have. So there's a whole array and a great potential of things that we can do. Again, it's a matter of getting everybody involved and having the enthusiasm so that we all understand where we're coming from. I truly believe in this, and I think it's going to be an excellent success, but the important thing here is commitment. We will continue to follow up with you. We'll be like a salesperson, is to say, okay, I said to Ann, we're not successful until they sign on the line and we get the order. And through the chamber, we'd like to, reach out and perhaps get this message across to the different members that you have in there, so that we have more of a publicity type of base. So again, I thank you all for attending. I really appreciate your time and your interest, and for all of those companies that have signed up, I do thank you for your efforts.
So, Linda.
I'm sure you've thought about this, but I would think that the hospital might serve a great purpose here, because the workforce needs today really talk about healthcare delivery. So internships at the hospital level and certainly in the community can be very resourceful for students.
Absolutely. They just couldn't make it to today's meeting.
Frank Kelly's on our chamber board. I'll see him Friday.
Great. So our steps forward from this point is if you're interested, please fill out this form today. Again, it's no commitment. And then I will follow up with phone calls. Does anybody else have any other ideas? Yeah.
I just had one idea thinking about the chamber, because I think there's a business-to-business event in November. And I don't know if somebody from the Adaptive School Program could be there, but there's a lot of businesses, and I think sometimes just to network. So just an idea, I don't know when that date is.
Is it November 18th? And the Chamber of Commerce, we're really growing. Right now we have 1,200 business members, and membership is a couple $100 a year. But there's many resources available for businesses, especially in this economic time. But I think the Chamber definitely would like to partner with the school system. And I will announce this and get on the literature board meeting Friday. So I'll talk to you more about it.
And just to dovetail on that, the Chamber is generous in donating a booth to DSABC at that event. So that might be an opportunity for us to highlight the Adopt a School. You can use our free booth, so to speak, to partner with the Adopt a School.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. It's not about what you have in your pockets to give us. It's about giving us your attention and knowing that we're very sincere about what our efforts are doing. As Dick said, it's not about the big $1 million, but it is about someone coming in, sitting down and reading to a youngster, and just listening to them. If I had to pay what Mary's group puts into our school system, we could never afford that human touch. So that's very important to us. We can come up with some of these other things on the list, that's phenomenal. But that one-on-one, it's hard to put in place at times. Like Dick, thank you for coming. And I start out, said to you in the beginning, sometimes I go to these meetings and I'm wondering, why am I there? You're here because we need you. We need your thinking, and we need your eyes to help us within the community to bring these resources together. So I thank you. I don't know, Kathy wants to say something. You've been quiet there?
Yeah, I have been, for a change.
For a change.
Yeah. I just want to thank you all for coming. As
as well, and how important it is for our children to be successful. And that's really our biggest fear, is that we're going to pay because we feel like we're burdening, this burden is just the Board of Ed and our administrators trying to move this big ship in another direction, because now we're asking adults to change their behavior in schools. And it's a huge ship to turn in a huge storm, so please help us.
And one other thing, two last points I make for you. It's so important for the students, every student, to feel that they're needed and there's a concern for them. And I think by us getting together, it demonstrates to them that somebody cares, somebody cares about them. Sometimes you hear some stories that it's only my teacher that cares about me here. If we can bring, again, this family concept to them, I think it'll help them. The other thing is, this presentation today is being filmed by John. Hopefully we'll have it on Comcast. If you want to get copies of the video to bring back to your companies, so that it may be a way, if you have a focus group or some orientation to them, there are copies that John will make available to you for a small fee. I think that would be another way to get the message across also.
And if you want someone to come to the company or to your organization, we'd be willing to just say the word and we'll come and talk about it. And again, I thank you very much for coming, and that's it.
Thank you very much.